Good morning and welcome to the first Rising Star Breakfast of 2016. We're delighted that Mayor Luke Bronin is with us, and I can't think of any better way to underscore working together for Hartford's future than all of you being here this morning and the energy that's in this room. We're delighted to have you here, and so welcome. In addition to the mayor, otherwise I wouldn't be able to get back into my office, I want to acknowledge the newly elected majority leader of the City Council, Julio Concepcion, who is our colleague. Now, when you do these 360 evaluations, I just wanted to make sure that I got a good report from Julio. Our mission is clearly, as it has been for the last 15 years, to make sure that this region competes aggressively and successfully for jobs, for capital, and talent and political leadership is absolutely critical to that. We're delighted that to have the opportunity to work with Luke and to work with him during the campaign and shortly after the election as he's made his transition, and obviously he'll hear more from him as we go forward. I want to thank Bank of America, Kevin Cunningham, and the entire Bank of America team for being our sponsor this morning. I want to thank our media sponsors, the Hartford Current and Fox 61, and Kevin, by the way, will be up here shortly to introduce the mayor. I want to thank Infinity Music Hall and Theater for hosting us again. To Dan Hinks and his entire team here, it's a tremendous asset for the city and for the region as a whole, and I think Dan's only regret is he didn't open the bar when you all walked in. The first order of business is introduce 10 new Hartford investors, and Mr. Mayor, I want you to note that 7 of them are from outside of the city, so I'm assuming you want to make introductions to them for potential relocation opportunities. First, I'm going to do this in groups of 5, and those entities that have representatives here, when I call your name, if you could stand so we can, and we'll recognize you in two groups of 5. First of all, AARP here in Connecticut, the AARP Connecticut, based here in Hartford, the nonprofit, nonpartisan organization with more than 37 million members, helping people turn their goals and dreams into real possibilities. They strengthen communities and fight for issues that matter most to families, including issues like health care, employment security, and retirement planning. And representing AARP Connecticut this morning are Nora Duncan, State Director, and Claudio Galtieri, Associate State Director for Advocacy. Our second Hartford investor, Aerial Worldview, based in West Hartford, an FAA-compliant drone services and research company. Who would have ever thought 10 years ago we were talking about drone services and research company? It focuses on aerial imaging, video and data collection services across various industries. In addition to those services, Aerial Worldview also conducts research with 2 provisional patents already submitted and several others in the development stage. Delighted to have 2 partners with us this morning. Tim McCrudden and Hikmet Tekşe are with us representing that organization. Our third Hartford investor, Agilus Global Services, based in Avon. It's a local IT staffing solutions and executive search firm focused on providing IT consultants to the insurance and financial services industry. Dennis Williams, president and founder of Agilus, is with us this morning. Our fourth, Alvarez and Marcel, out of New York City, a public sector services operations and finance consulting firm focusing on municipal, state, and federal government agencies with expertise in budgeting, operations, K-12 education, and health and human services. Might want to have a meeting afterwards. Mayor will arrange that on those. A&M has implemented lean operational improvements in Houston, conducted major efficiency studies for Puerto Rico, Louisiana, and Kansas, and has served in the education and senior educational roles in New Orleans and St. Louis public school systems. Michael Imber, senior director, representing the firm here this morning. And our fifth of the 10, Best Buddies Connecticut. In North Haven, creates opportunities for one-to-one friendships, integrated employment, and leadership development for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Representing Best Buddies this morning is Leslie Zupkis, State Director, and Steve Kinney, who's a board member. If those 5 are all here, if you stand, thank you all very much. We greatly appreciate it. And 5 additional Hartford investors, starting with Connecticut Automotive Retailers Association, represents over 270 new and franchised car dealers in the state. Combined, the dealerships employ nearly 14,000 people in the state of Connecticut, and last year they accounted for over $10.2 billion of sales, which is 18% of all retail sales in the state. Dealerships are nearly all generationally owned, family, small businesses. We know many of them are investors of ours, and we're delighted to have Jim Fleming with us this morning representing the association. Hilwa Inc. in Meriden, a regional general contracting firm specializing in design, build, and construction management project delivery solutions. It's been in business for over 25 years and successfully completed a diverse range of projects in the retail, mixed-use, R&D, and industrial sectors for clients ranging from Fortune 100 firms to small, locally owned manufacturers. Hilwa is known for making the building process an enjoyable, rewarding experience for its customers, and the president, Ken Hilwa, is with us this morning from Meriden. Russell Phillips and Associates in Plainville, a team of fire, code compliance, and emergency management experts providing specialized services to healthcare facilities throughout the United States and Canada. Representing the firm this morning, Scott Aronson, Principal, and Amanda Aronson of Aronson Consulting, LLC. And then our fifth of these 10, Taycor's Capital Group here in Hartford is a full-service government relations and association management company that provides the highest quality of expertise and knowledge in the areas of lobbying and management. And representing the firm this morning is John Bailey, Senior Lobbyist. Again, please a warm welcome to those five. One of the important things about growing this city and this region, obviously, is leadership. We're here to hear from the mayor, but it's also an opportunity this morning to recognize the newly elected Executive Committee of HYPE, which is celebrating its 10th anniversary, and I am absolutely delighted that neither Julie Daly Meehan or I have aged a single day in those 10 years. I don't know how many of the executive committee members are here this morning, but when I call your name, all of their names and their employers are up there. I want to just thank the entities that employ these individuals and encourage the engagement, not only in HYPE as a general matter and going to events, but taking leadership roles. This has been a tremendous contribution to the pipeline of talent and pipeline of leadership here in the region. So as you see up on the screen, Adam McLaughlin from Webster is the chair for 2016, and the chair-elect is Mitch Jackson from Northeast Payment Solutions. And then you can see the additional titles up there: Chris Pagano, Nick Pinto, Melissa Cahill, and Suzanne Hoyer, and David Morse. If you're all here, just all of you could just stand. Those are there. A couple of them here. They're all over there in one group. Delighted to have you all here this morning. You can see it does act as a team environment as they all sat together, which is always a good sign. Just a couple of things we want to make sure you're aware of. We continue to focus on the whole entrepreneurship, the E in HYPE, but in addition to what HYPE has done, John Shimo has led our effort in Innovation Destination Hartford, and more to come on that. A lot of partnerships we have with entities like Reset and Mass Challenge. Also want to call your attention to the Did You Know campaign that we launched last week over at the Capitol to promote the health sector as a vital driver of economic and employment growth here in the city, in the region, and the entire state. The posters, there are 8 or 9 of them that are over in the Capitol, along the corridor that connects the Capitol building to the LOB, and then in another area closer to the cafeteria, those same posters are there. This is built off an effort that Susan Winkler led on the Insurance and Financial Services cluster, where we've been had a Did You Know campaign for 5 or more years. Again, making sure that our legislators, our regulators understand how important these two sectors are. In addition to Susan leading the effort in the cluster, Amy Cunningham leads our effort in the Connecticut Health Council. A couple of events coming up. Speaking of the Health Council, their next program is on the 20th. And on the 25th, we have both Senators Blumenthal and Murphy as part of the partnership that we have with the New England Council in engaging those two gentlemen on important issues. There are a number of other dates that are coming down that are on our website, but do want to call your attention that our annual celebration will be held on Tuesday, April 19th over at the Bushnell. And then a couple of public service announcements. One is that the Connecticut Transit bus route improvement meetings that CT Transit is holding will be held on the 19th to the 21st. And their information on their website. Achieve Hartford is hosting Jamie Marasotis, who's the president and CEO of the Lumina Foundation, which has been a benefactor of a number of major education initiatives here in this region over the last several years, and he'll be talking at noon on Monday, the 25th. Those of you who were here in September, I think it was September, October, with the superintendent, we made a strong pitch for the student internship program that a number of us are involved in, and call your attention to the need there for additional internships in the March to June timeframe later this year. Another great event, a major event coming in. Important that we not only focus on this, but work together to make sure that those who come to the event on June 4th, the USA Gymnastics Trials, USA Gymnastics competition. This is, I think, the third time they've been here. This has been an exceptional way to showcase the city and the region, and so those of you who are asked to participate or take advantage of it, making sure your gymnastics clubs or youth groups in the region know about it. It's again a great way to showcase showcase our assets here. And then we'll keep promoting this right up to the inaugural flight on September 28th. The Aer Lingus service, direct daily service into Dublin, and the important thing we'll keep mentioning is how you clear customs in Dublin, so when you land at Bradley coming back from your overseas trip, you're landing as a you're landing having already cleared customs, which saves obviously a tremendous amount of headache. So I think Kevin Dunn is here this morning. I know Sandra Johnson, our former colleague, is working with Kevin to promote that, and I'm sure you'll all be hearing more from her and from us as we go forward. So with that, I'd like Susan Dunn to come up and join me on stage. One of the great things about this morning is not only recognizing Luke and the future of the political leadership of the city, recognizing HYPE directors, but recognizing individuals who contributed so much to the foundation of this community over an extended career. There's a long bio. Many of you know Susan either as a friend or having been solicited by her, and both are equally pleasant. Her energy and commitment to this city and the region, to the people whom United Way serves, all of you who participate in the United Way campaign, who volunteer your time and your treasure to many, many organizations that United Way supports. I can't think of anyone who epitomizes commitment to the region and to leadership, selfless leadership, than Susan. She has been a great friend of the Alliance. The United Way has for a long time. Our partnerships go back to the beginning of the organization. And Susan, since she assumed the CEO's role back in 2006, has been even more engaged with us. We've had some great partnerships, some significant Rising Star breakfasts that she and her team have driven, focusing on things like the Alice initiative. It has called, I think, to all of our attention the challenges that we face here in the region, and the requirement of all of us working together to not only help those who are in need at a particular time, but to really strengthen the entire fabric of this region. So Susan, it's my pleasure on behalf of our board of directors and all of us who work at the Alliance to present this Rising Star Award to Susan Dunn in recognition of 25 years of exceptional leadership at United Way in providing invaluable financial support and advocacy on behalf of thousands of Connecticut families and individuals, January 12th, 2016.
Thank you. I'm incredibly honored. It was always somebody else who was getting this award, and I never thought I would, so it really is an incredible honor. So I want to thank Oz for his friendship, support, and partnership over the years, Nancy Wheeler, who I haven't seen today, but there's just an incredible team at the Alliance who've been so supportive of me and of the work United Way is doing in this community. I certainly want to begin by congratulating Mayor Bronin. Good luck. We're so...
That was positive, Mayor. That was positive.
And I want to thank you for attracting such an incredible audience here today. I really appreciate that. Years ago, when Oz and I met shortly after I stepped into my role at United Way, it became very, very clear to us that our organizations were really about the same thing. We may come at it in a different way, but it was really about the quality of life here in this community in Greater Hartford. United Way looking to help kids read at grade level, graduate high school, college, and career ready, so that there was a workforce here for the jobs that the Alliance was helping to make sure were here, and good paying jobs so that our families could be financially stable, because we know how important that is. And Oz already alluded to our Alice report, which talks about those 1 in 3 households in Connecticut struggling to make ends meet and what we can do for them. And we also still continue to provide a safety net of services. So those folks that find themselves hungry or homeless in a disaster situation do have support in our community. But those are Band-Aids. And we really need to get to that place where we're making sure we have an educated workforce, that we have families that can support themselves. That's the goal, I think, of United Way and ultimately of the Alliance, too. And hopefully all of you here, because I certainly wouldn't have been supportive, nor would been successful, nor would United Way have been successful without all of you, without you giving your time and your treasure, without you having your workplace campaigns. And because of your generosity, and this is an incredibly generous community, don't let anyone else tell you anything different. We are about the 40th in the top 40 United Ways in terms of dollars being raised out of 1,200 in this country. That is amazing. We have a corporate community that is bar none in supporting the important things, education, here in this community. I want to also thank our volunteers, our staff that is incredible, and we have many of our staff here today. We have many of our board members here today, past and present board members, which is so gratifying. Some of our campaign chairs, past campaign chairs are here. And I do want to give a shout out to Greg Tislowski, who's our current board chair from Travelers. He's here today, and I really appreciate that, Greg, that you're here today. So thank you. So I'll close with just a word of advice. Since I announced that I was going to retire in November, I've had many people come up to me and say congratulations, best wishes, and many people say to me, I don't really know what to say when someone says they're going to retire. I'm not sure what's the appropriate thing. So I'm going to tell you what's the appropriate thing to say when someone retires. You look way too young to retire.
Susan, thank you very much, and we look forward to working with Paula, Gilberto, and the rest of the team. And I think we have a brief announcement up here that the annual meeting of United Way will be held on Wednesday, March 30th over at Rensselaer. And we look forward to a youthful retirement, Susan, as we go forward. So now to turn to the highlight of our principal speaker, Luke Bronin. It'll be my pleasure to introduce Kevin Cunningham, who in turn will introduce the mayor. Let me just take a minute and say how much we appreciate the relationship with people like Dean Andrews and Joe Gianni and the entire Bank of America team. Susan mentioned how blessed we are in this to have a number of businesses and private sector employers who are so generous, not only with their campaign contributions to United Way annual fund and the like, but to their extraordinary contribution of time and energy and ideas to continue to drive this city and region forward. In fact, I think it's safe to say that one of Luke's greatest assets and one of the city council's greatest assets as they assume their responsibilities is the private sector here in the city and the region. People are committed, as evidenced by this attendance this morning, to the future of this city, committed to giving their time and their talent and their ideas to moving the city forward. And certainly no one epitomizes that kind of intellectual energy and intellectual contribution than Kevin Cunningham, who serves as the Connecticut state president for the bank, but also in his real estate job as the credit executive for Global Commercial Bank, where he manages commercial lending for Canada and the U.S. Northeast region. He's been a great friend of the Alliance, been a great personal, professional friend. No one brings greater enthusiasm to UConn athletics than Kevin Cunningham. So please welcome to the podium the Connecticut president for Bank of America, Kevin Cunningham.
Good morning, everyone. I would also like to congratulate Susan Dunn for receiving the Rising Star Award. Under Susan's leadership, the United Way has helped thousands of families in need from the greater Hartford area. I wish you and Ned the best in retirement. I didn't say it, Susan, but I was thinking about it when I was talking about skiing this morning. You look way too young to retire. I'd also like to thank Oz and the MetroHartford Alliance. Your team does a great job advocating for the corporate community in Metro Hartford and in Connecticut. Thank you for advancing our agenda and ensuring that business has a voice in local and state government. Bank of America is proud to be a leadership investor with the Alliance, and our employees appreciate the opportunity to work on Alliance initiatives. I've worked in Hartford for 32 years. It's exciting to see the great developments that are underway in our city. This is my first trip to this wonderful music hall. In 2017, UConn will open its new campus, bringing 2,000 students downtown. Next summer, we'll have minor league baseball after work. State employees will soon occupy vacant buildings on the riverfront. Approximately 900 units have recently or will soon come online in Hartford. It's hard for me to fathom that someone is living in my old office on the 24th floor of 77 Main Street. It was a nice office. The collective impact of these activities will add significant foot traffic, enhance economic activity, and create a vibrancy that we have not seen in Hartford for some time. At Bank of America, we are thrilled to see all the progress in Hartford. Our roots go back to Pearl Street in 1792. Our employees are enthusiastically involved in the Hartford community through volunteerism, philanthropy, and of course, banking activities. We plan to be here a very long time. I'd now like to introduce the mayor. Well, before I actually go over the mayor's bio, I'd like to emphasize one of the themes from his inauguration that resonated with me, which is the city needs the help of the suburban residents to help revive Hartford. Any impressions of our region starts with Hartford. We need to be positive about Hartford. We are pro-business. We have a strong business community with a great tradition. If there is something you do not like, get involved and speak up. Come into Hartford for dinner, for entertainment, or to help out a nonprofit. We need to spend time in our city. Please tell your friends and your coworkers. Susan, we're a top 40 city, you said it. Let's act like it. The mayor, Mayor Bronin is a father, a veteran, and an attorney. He has served in senior positions in both federal and state government. In 2013, he was appointed by Governor Malloy to serve as general counsel. In his position as the governor's chief lawyer, Bronin advanced the governor's agenda and was deeply involved in developing policies to combat veterans' homelessness, expand economic opportunities, reform our criminal justice system, and protect our environment. Prior to his role in the Governor Malloy's office, he served as a Deputy Assistant Secretary for Terrorist Financing and Financial Crimes at the U.S. Treasury. In that role, he helped lead the federal government's efforts to isolate and disrupt international terrorist groups. Previously, he served as a senior advisor to the Deputy Secretary of the U.S. Treasury. He was an International Affairs Fellow with the Council of Foreign Relations. He served as Chief of Staff to the President of the Property and Casualty Division at the Hartford. He also served as an officer in the U.S. Navy Reserve and was deployed in Afghanistan. Most recently, he worked as a partner at the law firm Hinckley Allen. Mayor Bronin earned his BA and JD from Yale University and his MA from Oxford University, where he studied as a Rhodes Scholar. Please give me a warm welcome to our new mayor.
Thank you so much, Kevin, for that introduction. Oz, thank you. Susan, congratulations. You do look way too young to retire. And good luck to you, too. For the record, I'll take all the luck I can get. So it's tremendous to see this crowd. I know many of you, and I know your commitment to Hartford, and whether you live in Hartford or just love Hartford, thank you for your recognition that we're at a critical time. This is an opportunity, I think, for us all to try to revitalize and reinvent this great city. The MetroHartford Alliance is a critical part of that. And so to all of the new members who were just announced, congratulations and thank you for your participation. To the Hype members under Julie's leadership, you guys are awesome. And I love the energy that you bring to the city. Almost 2 nights a week, we can find you doing something great in all over the city. I'm going to talk for a little while, but I'm not going to talk for that long because I want to get to a conversation and just have questions and answers. When I gave my inaugural remarks on Monday last week, I laid out what I think is and ought to be our aspiration for the city. It's to be the undisputed economic and cultural heart of a region of 1.5 million people. And to be a city in which every resident feels that they've got a share in Hartford's rise. Both halves of that are equally important. On the first part, Kevin, to your point, we have to think and act like a region. Our aspiration for Hartford shouldn't simply be a city of 125,000 people that does the best we can and cleans the roads well and restores accountability to government. It needs to be more than that. Our aspiration needs to be the center of a region of 1.5 million people. To look at those metro regions around the country and say there's no reason we can't be as vital, as vibrant as a Pittsburgh or an Austin or an Atlanta. The corporate community here is a community that most cities our size would be green with envy over. The cultural assets in this city are assets that cities far larger than us should envy. And it's not just the Wadsworth Athenaeum or the Bushnell, as extraordinary as those places are. It's also Latino Fest down at the riverfront, or the Asian Festival down at the riverfront, or the Charter Oak Cultural Center, or Kabbalah House. It's the West Indian Day Parade. It's the Puerto Rican Day Parade. It's cultural events that should be bringing our entire region together to celebrate the cultural assets and the cultural beauty of this city and our community. We cannot do that if we think of ourselves as narrow little New England towns with borders that we don't cross. And that may be the biggest challenge that the city of Hartford faces. 17.5 square miles with half of our property tax base non-taxable. In those 17.5 square miles, you have the major employers for that region of 1 million plus. You have the hospitals that serve that region of 1 million plus. You have, like almost any other large metro area, a concentration of social and economic challenges that we cannot bear alone. Susan Dunn's work at the United Way, highlighting the challenge of families in Connecticut living not in poverty but near poverty, asset limited, income constrained, and employed, is vital work to shedding light on the challenge that we all have to deal with. In the city of Hartford, add to that 1/3 number that Susan talked about, the fact that another third of our residents do live in poverty. 2/3 of our residents in the city of Hartford are living in poverty or are struggling on the edge of it. In the northeast neighborhood of Hartford, unemployment is in excess of levels we saw in the Great Depression, 27% unemployment. We all have an obligation to think about how we can make Hartford grow, how we can bring jobs to this city. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what I think everybody in this room can do. But first, I just want to highlight, we have to be focused equally on our aspirations and on our obstacles. Our aspirations are achievable. We can be a world-class city. We can be a metro region of 1 million plus people that rivals the best small cities in this country. But not if we don't also pay attention to the fact that everybody in this city's got a share in that rise. To do that, we need to focus not just on the downtown development, Kevin, that you spoke about, as exciting as that is. We also need to remember that we've got neighborhoods that are the real heart of this city. That for a long, long time, Albany Avenue, Franklin Avenue, Farmington, Maple, North Main, those were real centers of commerce and of community. That's what knit our city together, and it's what connected us out to the region that so many of you all live in. We have to get back to focusing on some of those neighborhoods and some of those corridors. At the same time that we continue our momentum downtown, and believe me, I'm going to do everything I can, working in partnership with CRDA, with the state, to continue that momentum. With UConn, and I see President Herbst is here, their commitment to Hartford is exciting and one of the greatest opportunities that we've got. But we've got to look beyond downtown, because downtown development isn't enough. And we've got to make sure that we're not forgetting that economic development is about more than building buildings or converting buildings. It's more than real estate projects, more than baseball stadiums. Fundamentally, it's about jobs and opportunity for the residents of the city of Hartford. We talk a little bit more about some of the challenges that we face. This year alone, we've got roughly $4 million deficit that we need to close in the next few months. In the years to come, we face a structural deficit that is daunting. Somewhere in the neighborhood of $30 million. That's more than 10% of the non-education spending that the city of Hartford does. That is a huge obstacle for us to overcome. We cannot deal with that structural problem and continue to be a city that serves all of its residents, that recognizes that we have to improve education, that we have to try to strengthen our workforce development, that we have to invest in employment for young people. We can't do all those things on the tax base that we have and do it the way that a city that's the economic and cultural heart of a region of 1.5 million people should do, unless we start acting like a region. And that means we're going to have to change the way that we, as a state, fund our cities. Nobody in their right mind would design a state of 169 independent towns these days. Nobody in their right mind would create a city like Hartford, draw a circle around it of 17.5 square miles, and keep all of the property tax base beyond that out of it. There are a lot of ways to get at that challenge, and I don't want to get into a discussion too deeply about that today, but I ask you to recognize that Hartford's challenges are not just that there's been a lack of accountability at times or bad decisions at times. Our challenge is structural. We have to acknowledge this, because it's so easy for folks who are living outside of Hartford. You may love this city, but it's so easy to look and say, I'm just frustrated, I'm fed up with Hartford. Why does it seem to always have these challenges? So in that discussion, recognize that in some ways, the deck has been stacked against the city of Hartford. And we have to start dealing from a new deck. I'm going to be working hard at the state capitol, visiting the suburban towns around Hartford to make that case. To make the case that it can't work when half of our property tax base is non-taxable and we only get reimbursed for a small fraction of the value of that property. It can't work when we are, by some measures, the second poorest city in the country at the heart of one of the most affluent regions in the country. So I want to spend a minute on that because I ask you to be allies in that battle. And it's not an easy one, because I know how strong the commitment to home rule is. I know how deep the skepticism is about what we can achieve in Hartford. But I also know from this room and the people I know in this room and the energy in this room that everybody here believes we can do so much better in this city, in this region, and that we really can set our expectations and our aspirations at a whole new level and achieve them. I want to talk a little about my commitment to you and to the city, and then talk about what I'm going to a little more ask of you all. My commitment is to tackle the challenges head on. We cannot be afraid to face the obstacles we've got, to make tough decisions. I said through the campaign, and I'll say it again, I want to be here for a while because you can't turn a city around in 4 years. I don't want to be a one-term mayor, but I'm willing to be a one-term mayor, if that's what it takes to make the tough decisions that get us on the right path. We have to be willing to take political risk. We have to be willing to go out and talk candidly about the options that are on the table for our city, and then we have to drive hard at the solutions we identify. That's my commitment to everybody in this city. I will do my best to do that, and I will work hard every single day to achieve the aspiration that we've set out. Now I want to talk a little bit about other things that you can do, and just as importantly, things that your companies can do. Number one, thinking about the corporate power that is in this room. Every single one of your companies has the ability to do more to promote economic growth in Hartford. If you have a laundry service, think about whether you could contract that out to a company in Hartford. If you have food service, think about whether you could contract that out to a small business in Hartford. If your employees are moving in from somewhere else in the region, tell your HR department not to tell them, oh no, you don't want to live in Hartford, you want to live in... If you lead a team at your company, tell your company, hey, it's Wednesday, I'm going to Bears for lunch. Anybody want to come? If you're the CEO of that company, send a company-wide email and say, I'm going out for lunch I'm going to go get some jerk chicken up at Dunn's River. Anybody want to come? Create that expectation and that culture inside your company that everybody's got a stake in this city. That there's so much to explore in this city that nobody, no matter how long you've lived here, has explored every bit of this great city. And so if you're coming to work every day here and you haven't gone up to Dunn's River to North Main, if you haven't gone down to Parksville and tried some of the new restaurants, if you haven't gone up and tried some of the food on Albany Avenue, if you haven't gone out to Franklin and gone to Corner Grinder, and I could go on and on and on, do it. And talk to your colleagues about it, and talk to your neighbors about it. I said in the remarks last Monday, to those of you who have your roots in Hartford, whose families were in Hartford, who may have grown up in Hartford, but if you no longer live here, come home to Hartford. Come home to live in 777 Main, or in any of the great houses in so many neighborhoods in this city, or just come home for dinner. But do it more often, and do it with a recognition that that kind of commitment is just as important as the very generous philanthropic commitment that Susan has encouraged you for so long to make to this city. It's not just about charity. It's about making Hartford the economic and cultural center of this region, and that means for everybody who lives in this region, the economic and cultural center of your life. With that, I'm happy to take questions. But I want to say, I cannot thank you all enough for being here. I cannot thank you all enough for the commitment that you all demonstrate every day in various ways and have for so long. I look forward to working with the Alliance. I also look forward to working with each of you and each of your companies or organizations on a regular basis and making sure that my team understands the importance of building relationships and maintaining relationships with all of you. So thank you very, very much. Oz, I'm in your hands. I'll go for as long as you want.
There are microphones, and standing up there, it's very difficult to see out with the lights, so if you just, when you get your first question, you can just introduce yourself. So I know we got microphones. You said questions from anybody? Oh, back. Right there, right there. That gentleman right there. Thanks.
Good morning. I'm Father Jim Shanley. I'm newly appointed rector at St. Joseph's Cathedral on Farmington Avenue. You have a lot of churches, a lot of synagogues, a lot of mosques all over the city, all non-taxable, I might add. But I'm wondering what your vision for the religious community in the city of Hartford, how we can be of assistance to somehow put your vision into practice.
Thanks for that question. I think our faith community is a huge part of of success in Hartford. I would say the most important thing you could do as a faith leader is to work hand in hand, more in coordination with other faith leaders in the city and with us. I mean, there are so many, just like the philanthropic efforts in the city, there's so much going on. And I think one of the important things that the Hartford Foundation does and that the United Way does and other organizations is try to coordinate those efforts. The same goes for the faith community. You guys do extraordinary work feeding, housing, caring for those who are most in need. You do extraordinary work helping those citizens who are coming back from prison and trying to re-enter and get on their feet in Hartford, have somebody who's there to create that sense of community. Your role in that is vital. I think sometimes those efforts are suffer by being too scattered. And so the one thing I would say is I ask and invite you to try to build those bridges, unite the faith community as much as possible across denominations, across religions, and I'm committed to working with you and helping in any way I can. And I would throw the question back at you and tell me, what can we do better from the city side to help you do that?
Good morning, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Lawrence.
Andrew Lawrence from the Caribbean Trade Council. First of all, congratulations. Now, November 30th, the ambassador for Jamaica visited Hartford, the Hartford region. We had a meeting with Bradley International Airport. Now, as you all also aware, Hartford, the greater Hartford area, has the third largest concentration of Jamaicans and Caribbeanites in this region. What are your views on direct flights from Bradley to Jamaica, where Jamaica now is going to have the first logistics hub on the Western Hemisphere when it comes to trade and economic development for Hartford? And in closing, the Caribbean Trade Council is also here to assist you growth in Hartford for the economic development initiatives.
It's a lot warmer there today.
Yes, it is. I just returned 2 days ago from meetings regarding Bradley.
Thanks, Andrew. Look, I support flights from Bradley to anywhere, but especially, I think there's a huge opportunity. I want to make sure everyone heard what Andrew Lawrence said. We have the third largest West Indian population in the entire country, in Greater Hartford. That's an example of the cultural asset that we have, and I think it's an example of a cultural asset that we haven't fully explored or utilized. I mean, everybody should think about that. There are so many great West Indian restaurants in this city. There's so many great West Indian festivals. I mean, everybody should understand that. And I think a lot of people don't. And to highlight one example of what success might look like down the road, I talked about the West Indian Day Parade. West Indian Day Parade draws, 10,000 people or so, maybe more, down to Bushnell Park. Almost everybody there is West Indian. To me, success is a parade that draws 20,000 people, where 10,000 of those people have no direct cultural tie to the celebration, but recognize that we are all one community and we all have to share in that. To your specific question, there are also very real economic opportunities that come with that. As a center of population, we should be a center of import-export. We should be looking for any and all opportunities to get a small business that's bringing in some Jamaican food, some other West Indian food. We can work with the regional market down on the South Meadows. We could work with Bradley. There are lots of different ways to try to promote that. There are groups like International Hartford that are working specifically on how to promote entrepreneurial ventures by immigrant communities. And I think there's a lot that we can build on. I'd love to work with you. Would love to meet with the ambassador sometime. But I think there's enormous opportunity to take that cultural asset that we have and turn it into an economic asset for the city.
There was one in the back there, Meredith.
Mayor, yes. Mike McGarry, Hartford News, Hartford Blooms. Over the years, our Economic Development Department done a lot of good work. You know them all. They worked hard. But they never really had a stated set of goals. Or they never had something they had to reach toward. It's always been kind of shotgun, scattered. Now, are you going to develop a solid statement of goals that in a few years we can test your mettle and see if you met those goals?
Get on. I said either that or get on a flight to Jamaica. Mike, I think it makes a lot of sense. You know, we're a weekend, but I think it makes a lot of sense to define those goals. But let me say this, but I want to, but it's very seriously. I mentioned this a little bit in my remarks, but one of my instructions to our economic development department, I worked hard during the transition to assemble a team across the board, and I think we got a really strong team. In development services, I think we were in desperate shape. You know, there had been an exodus from development services, and we've built a team there that I think is outstanding. My instruction to my nominee for Director of Development Services is that our #1 responsibility is job growth. We cannot think of economic development just as chasing a shiny project. And I've thought a lot about baseball in recent days, and I'm looking forward to going to the Yard-Goats games. But we cannot think of economic development just as building a stadium or converting a building, downtown, or a casino. You know, we have to get a better ground game. It's not going to be long passes down the field. We need to get better at the day-to-day promotion and recruitment of small businesses, of mid-sized businesses, dealing with those companies that are already here and have a foothold and have the potential to grow here or elsewhere, and helping them make the decision to grow here. So my instruction is to them has been to think about economic development much more broadly than we have in the past. That it's not just about that shiny project, it's about the ground game, it's about job growth, and it's about the relationships that are required to make that happen.
Ted Carroll, Leadership Greater Hartford. We very much support the vision that you've laid out here, Mayor. It seems to me one other opportunity that you might offer people in this audience. We know the city has more than 30 boards and commissions, and it seems to me that they would benefit from some additional perspectives, some fresh energies. To what extent do you see that as an opportunity for caring citizens throughout the region to be able to invest in the city through sharing their time and their talent?
It's a great question. You know, one of the things I need to do is sit down and look at all of those boards and commissions and figure out some of them, frankly, have been moribund for a little while. We need to figure out how we prioritize our efforts. Maybe not all of them need to exist, but those that exist, we need to make sure that we're actually making appointments, empowering them, and setting expectations for them. I will be doing that over the couple months. That has not been the focus of the transition period thus far. Obviously, there's some key boards and appointments that I'll have to be making very soon, like Board of Education. Now, obviously, like a lot of towns, many of those boards and commissions require you to live in Hartford. That's something that the council could take a look at, but I suspect that requirement for many of those boards and commissions would remain in place. But that doesn't mean there isn't a wealth of opportunities to get involved in the city in any number of ways, and we've talked about some of them.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, and congratulations. My name is Glenn Winfrey. I'm the head of school for Covenant Preparatory School. We're a tuition-free, independent private school here in Hartford, and we could expound on and talk about the importance of education, I'm sure, in terms of the growth of the city in the future. I'm curious, we're a unique school, Covenant Prep, Grace Academy, Trinity Academy, tuition-free independent schools here in the area. And I'm curious how we can work with you to support your goals in terms of developing students and youth in the communities and the areas in Hartford.
Well, let's sit down and talk about it. I haven't visited Covenant Prep, but I have been over to a couple of other schools that you mentioned. And I think the lesson from the schools that you run, to me, is it's about aspirations. It's about the fact that our kids are capable of a tremendous amount. And even those kids who have grown up facing trauma, who've grown up with obstacles that in most cases might make it very difficult for them to overcome, the kind of environment that created in some of the schools that you talked about allows them to overcome it. I went to a poetry reading at Grace Academy. there's a month-long poetry reading, and I went and read a poem, and the conversation that followed blew me away. From girls as young as 8 talking just beautifully and insightfully about what we had just read, and then to hear their stories and hear what they overcome, to me, just gave me an enormous amount of hope and confidence that we can do better. Somebody said to me a couple of years ago, somebody who'd been in vested in trying to strengthen Hartford for a long time, that the thing that made him most sad is that Hartford has some of the greatest minds the world will never know. And that statement, I've never forgotten, and I think about it often because I think it's absolutely true. We, in all of our schools, whether they're neighborhood or magnet, whether they're Hartford Public or CREC, whether they're independent or a charter, we all have to share those same goals. And one of the things we have to do is bring all of our educational community to the table. We can't be in the mode of competing for students and acting like one school system success is the other's failure. On the big scale in Hartford, that's particularly true between Hartford Public Schools and CREC. We've got to build a different kind of relationship there. But I'd love for you guys to be part of that conversation. I'd love to sit down and talk about what you do and whether there are lessons that we should be taking.
One of the back first, David, I'll get to you right there.
Mr. Mayor, Jim Fleming, in your opening remarks, you mentioned about getting out into the suburban communities, and I think that's a real key to bringing the city back to what it was years ago. Many of us in this room have worked in Hartford most of our lives, but live in the suburbs. What are the specific things that we can do to help get you out there? We've got great contacts, willing to do it, but do you have some specifics on what you want us to do to help you?
Well, as far as getting out there, if there are particular venues that you think that would help to go spread this gospel of regionalism, I'm happy to do it. So let me know. I plan to be reaching out, whether it's at libraries or at Lions clubs or at chambers of commerce. I plan to be reaching out and going out and trying to make that case. But I would welcome any invitations to do that. I really do believe that, as I said, we can't succeed unless everybody's bought in on that. And marketing a city and promoting a city isn't just about putting ads on TV. It's also about getting out there face to face. And the other thing I would say is, don't wait for me to do that. If there's a venue where you can do that, do it. Get out and make that same remark. Make the point that Kevin made this morning. Make the points that I tried to make, that our success as a region is inextricably tied to Hartford's success as a city and vice versa. And everybody has something that they can personally do in their lives to help make that change.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor.
Morning,
I'm Hyacinth Yanni with the Maple Avenue Revitalization Group. And I'm here because as a resident and as a NRZ chair, talking to the resident, talking to small business owners, and the constant issue around taxes and how, as a city, can we help these small business owners to deal with the tax issue that they face on a heavy base every day of their lives? So to encourage more small business to come into the city, not just big corporations, but small business, because we are the root of the city. And so I'd like to know what it is that you have in mind to help these small business people to grow.
So first of all, let me get to taxes in a second. That's the biggest issue. But first, one of the positions, as I reorganized our Department of Development Services, one of the positions I created was a Director of Small Business and Community Development, whose job is to be that point of contact for small businesses in the city. Don Chapman, he's been in the city for a little while, lives in the city, knows our neighborhoods very, very well, knows our small businesses, and is, I think, really passionate about being that person who can help those small businesses navigate the challenges of City Hall. And not just City Hall, but also navigate the opportunities that might exist at DECD, Department of Economic and Community Development at the state, or elsewhere, so that we can really be, rather than a City Hall that is stovepiped and feared by small business, a place where small business really comes and says, hey, here's my challenge, can you help? And we're going to do our best to help, and we'll have a dedicated team focused on that effort. There is no question that for our small businesses in this city, the biggest obstacle is taxes. And let's talk about our taxes for a second. Our mill rate's at 74.29. 74.29. But there's a difference between how commercial property and residential property is taxed in the city. I wanted to talk about this because I don't want anybody to say that we can't move into the city of Hartford because we have to pay more property taxes on our houses than we would in your towns. You actually could probably get a better value on a house and pay just about the same taxes in Hartford on a residential property as you would elsewhere. But the corporate community gets assessed at full freight. And I know that's an issue that I've been focused on for some time. But the truth is, for our biggest companies, I think that's something that they can manage, even though it's uncomfortable. For our small businesses, that's the thing that potentially has them living and operating on the edge. So over time, we have to get to a place where we're easing that burden. There's been some work done in this past special session. Senator Fonfara pushed through some legislation that would allow us to lower the mill rate for small businesses coming in and to share some of that marginal increase in tax revenue with businesses around that business in the neighborhood. So it's not just about that one getting a new break, but it's about sharing the benefit of the new revenue. We can look at some creative solutions like that, but ultimately, over time, we have to reduce the burden. And that gets back to the issue that I highlighted earlier, which is we have to make some structural change. We have to make some change in the payments in lieu of taxes. We cannot continue to ask a city to bear the burden of social service and education in a city that is that is so limited from an income standpoint, and not compensate the city for those regional assets that sit here but aren't taxable.
One more on that side right there. Yeah, I guess we have one or two. One right there. But I'll take that right. Last question.
Hi, Ann Alfgren. I know one of your important goals, Mayor, is to increase youth employment in the summer. Where are you in your thinking? When will we hear about what you need from us?
Thanks, Ann. I appreciate that question. One of my goals is it's not just summer youth employment. Summer youth employment is critical. We need to be focused on youth employment summer and throughout the year. You know, this is, I haven't talked about public safety. Public safety is clearly a priority for this city. One of the most important things we can do is engage our young people better, both through employment and through recreation. On the employment front, I want to expand the existing programs that promote internships at many of your companies, that provide through groups like Capital Workforce Partners, which administers a summer youth employment program. I think there's a missing piece, and it's what I've called the Youth Service Corps, which is modeled on the Civilian Conservation Corps, and then much more modestly on what cities like the city of Waterbury did last year when they hired teenagers to shovel snow on snow days in the winter. We need to give young people in our city an opportunity to earn a paycheck and get a sense of purpose, while at the same time doing concrete things that are visible in the community that will help bring us together. And the kids who are doing that work, they may not be ready for some of the internships that are available at some of the companies, but they could benefit hugely from the opportunity to have sustained employment, not just in the summer, but part-time throughout the year, where they're doing something that they can look at and be proud of, and gives them that experience, that work history that they can then take to an employer and say, look at my work history, I'm ready to go. That's critically important. I have set up a number of transition team working groups that are working on a variety of policy issues, from blighted property to workforce development to recreation. Another one of the to reentry for those coming out of prison. And the other one is focused on the Youth Service Corps. They're going to be providing recommendations soon on structure in draft form. I'll be working with them after I get that draft to identify specifically what we need to do. And I will be coming to the corporate community, to the philanthropic community, and laying out what I think we need to get from here to there to be able to do that right. But we need to be able to do that in sufficient numbers that it has a real impact. And you talk to organizations, whether it's Compass or Brother Carl Hardrick, who's over at the Y and doing direct work intervening with those who are most at risk of being involved or being on the periphery of violent activity. The number one thing they say they need are jobs that they can redirect young people to. So we've got to create that, and I will be coming with a more specific ask in the very near future.
Mr. Mayor, thank you for an extraordinary half an hour. It was really me just wrap this up in thanking the mayor. I know the energy in this, I almost you don't even need to walk out of here. Well, I think the energy will take us right out. We look forward to working with the mayor, with his team, and with the city council in really leveraging, as everyone has said here in all the remarks, and the mayor especially, this extraordinary foundation of assets, intellectual assets, physical assets, and driving the city and the region forward. I want to thank Kevin Cunningham and the Bank of America team for the sponsorship this morning. Certainly thank Dan Hinks and everybody here at Infinity Hall. I think we've got a plug up there for our Pulse of the Region show. And I just want to say that when Susan, congratulations again, Susan, and thanks for your leadership. When she made the comment about what you say to a retiree, about, you look too young to retire, my phone lit up with about 50 messages saying, you don't. So with that, good luck. Thank you all very much.